Hello, welcome to today's lesson. Take out your pens and papers and we'll do a small quiz. Let's jump to the hands. I have prepared 4 preflop spots. They all come from the final table of the Triton Poker Main Event that took place in Montenegro this year. I will be stopping action and your task is to guess what the solver would do in that spot. If you predict the action that is most commonly used by the solver, you get 1 point. If you guess that it's a mixed, not a pure strategy, you get 1 bonus point. Our first hand starts with action on UTG +1 on an 8-handed table. He is one of 2 shortest stacks. What is the play here? If you set that it's an all-in, you get 1 point, and if you set it's all-in with some raises, you get 2 points. What is interesting in that spot is that the solver on 11 blinds still wants to mostly raise from an early position, but there are a few hands that prefer to just jam. These are the hands that are in awkward spots when we get a 3-bet, and ace-queen off is one of them. Action goes around to big blind with 24 blinds. What is the preferred action here? If you set it's a pure fold, you get 1 point. He should be very tight here. Even when he dominates part of the jamming range, he risks almost half of his stack, and even though he cannot bust here, his bubble factor is pretty high, because after losing this hand he becomes one of the shortest stacks, so chips lost are much more valuable than those that he can potentially gain. We skipped a few hours of play and we are 3-handed now. Action is on small blind. What should he do with 9-5 suited? It's a pure jam. He is chip leader and can be very aggressive in this scenario, jamming almost half of his hands and raising another quarter. Now it's time for a big blind decision with Jack-10 offsuit. Okay, this one was easy. +1 for pure fold. Even though small blind jamming range is so wide and includes hands like 5 deuce suited, big blind is in ICM cage and needs a lot of equity to make a profitable call. He should call less than 20% of hands here. Another hand decision is on chip leader on the button. This one was a bit tricky. It's almost pure raise, but jamming has the same equity and solvers want to jam it sometimes. So +1 for raise and +2 if you guessed mixed strategy. We still want to have raises in that spot to induce with our best hands like 10s plus and the best suited aces. And some of the best hands to balance it as a bluff are our worst offsuit king x combos. Time for small blind decision with ace-8 suited. Solver wants to call only 9% of hands, and ace-8 suited is on the bottom of that range. +1 point for pure call. Next hand we have another blind versus blind scenario, with the chip leader closing the action. It's a pure jam from the small blind. He should be pretty tight here compared to chippy V's scenario, and open fold more than half of his hands. Almost all aces, except ace-king suited, are jamming in this spot, and he can also have some smaller raises with best hands, and same as in king-5 offsuit hand before, the best hands to do it are bottom of playable offsuit kings and queens, and some suited trash like jack-5 or 10-6. After jam, what is the correct play with ace-4 offsuit on the big blind? This one was hard, because this hand is on the bottom of calling range and it's indifferent what we will do with it. Solver calls it most of the time and mixes it with folds, so +2 points for that answer. There were 11 points to grab, but if you scored more than 8, then it's a very good result. If you scored below 7, then maybe it's time to study some preflop ranges. One of the most efficient ways to do it is by using the trainer function in the Poker Academy app. Now, for a dessert, let's look at another hand from this final table. It starts with a small blind limp with aces, and it's a good play. But as we can see, even on 9.5 blinds, solver wants to have some small raises here, and aces should sometimes do it. Ponakovs has kings, and we would assume that this is ultimate cooler and there is no way that aces aren't getting it in before the river. But big blind had different plans and checked it back. As we can see on these stacks, he should always make a small raise with them. You could ask yourself, what is he doing? But actually, if we check a very similar scenario, where small blind has 7.5 blinds instead of 9.5, we can see that aces are pure limp and kings are pure checkback. It's just much easier to get all in before the river on a bit shorter stack. Small blind limping range is very polarized with only traps and trash, so we want to keep the worst hands in. For post-flop play, we will use the 7.5 blind scenario ranges, so big blind can have his actual hand represented. We see a very interesting flop and a small bet from Dejan Kaladjurdjevic. It's approved by the solver. Big blind shouldn't fold too much here and play most of his range as a call, so everything is GTO so far. On the brick turn, solver prefers to jam aces without flush draw and mostly bet with smaller sizing with ace of hearts. Aleksej makes a call with his kings and that is also okay. But if we look closer, we see that he should call all combos of kings with king of hearts and jam some of them without it. We get the king of hearts on the river and Dejan completes his royal flush. Solver wants to check it, to protect his checking range here. If we go back to the preflop chart, we can see that he should jam all other ace-x, so pocket aces is literally the only hand that makes the nuts on the river. Ponakovs, after a brief moment, checks back his top set, and that, according to the solver, is also preferred action with this hand. At first sight, this looks like a very strange showdown with these hands, but as we can see, they both played that hand post-flop very well. You can check links to post-flop solves from the Poker Academy app in the description below. I hope you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe and see you next time. Bye.